Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if it is your first time checking us out. Today, we're gonna talk about short-term rentals in 2023 here in the Colorado Springs area. All right, so like I said, today, short-term rentals. This is a topic that I wouldn't say everybody's interested in, but it seems like a lot of people are interested in short-term rentals on the investment side if you're thinking about getting into real estate. We see a lot of it in the Colorado Springs market. We have for a number of years, so just wanted to share a few thoughts with everybody on what we think is going to happen in 2023.
Yeah, absolutely. So in general, we're going to be covering just the overall market really quickly here in the Springs area. More specifically, the short-term rental market, restrictions and ordinances within the city, things like that. We're going to touch on all of that. So right now in the market, as many of you know, interest rates are really high, slowed down the market a ton, especially here in the Springs. We've seen a lot more moderation of home prices, I would say, than maybe nationally most people have seen. And we're definitely seeing that affect the market here. We're definitely seeing the high interest rates affect not just your everyday home buyers, trying to find a property, a primary residence for them, but we're seeing it affect the investment side greatly because interest rates are higher on the investment side.
On the investment side, it's all about numbers, right? So as rates go up, it just makes the numbers more difficult to make them make sense, if you will. And I think that's why a lot of folks nationally, but definitely here in the Colorado Springs area, have kind of shied away from the traditional long-term rental model where you buy a property, you rent it out for 12 months, a family lives there, kind of that normal rental model that we're kind of used to. I think that's really difficult to make numbers make sense in Colorado Springs now. So when investors buy long-term rental properties in Colorado Springs, and really most of the Front Range of Colorado, it's typically more of an appreciation play. So you may not cash flow very much on the property, if at all, but you're banking on the fact that that property is going to go up in value a substantial amount, which if that happens and it's a great play for sure. And in the long term, if you hold that property for 10, 20, 30 years, that's going to be the case. But a lot of people are really kind of focused on, man, like I want to get cash flow right now, and I can't do it in long-term investments. Maybe I want long-term rental investments. Maybe they aren't happy with their day job, or maybe they just want to supplement their income a little bit. So they're really interested in maximizing cash flow with their real estate investments and enter short-term rentals, which have been popular across the country for a number of years. But that's really why I believe we're starting to see more of them here in Colorado, is because the long-term rental kind of strategy is really difficult because values went up so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And not to mention, like, with short-term, I mean, if you're making the numbers work for you correctly, if you're making a smart investment, you might be cash flowing anywhere from 2 to 4 or 5 times like what you would normally cash flow on a long-term investment. So it's definitely a very appealing investment. So let's jump into some of the problems that we're starting to see here in Colorado Springs with the short-term rental market, with the short-term investment. First of all, if you can swing it, it's a really great investment here in the area.
Yeah.
Right?
We have a ton of tourism. I mean, Colorado Springs, you were looking up numbers on this, some stats. I didn't realize how many people come to visit Colorado Springs annually, but it was like 20 million plus or something crazy.
Yeah, I think it's somewhere in that 23, 25 million a year on average that come through Colorado Springs. Obviously, COVID kind of skewed that a little bit. But coming out of COVID, I think it said even in 2022, really kind of first full year out of COVID, 23 million visitors or something like that. It's on the city's website, so you can check that out. But it's a great area to be investing in a short-term rental, and it's not, in my opinion, it's not necessarily too seasonally affected,
Yeah, I think that there's probably a little bit of seasonality to it, but it's not as if, there's some areas of the U.S., let's think about something in the far north, like
Alaska.
Alaska maybe. I was going to say Minnesota Lakes region where it's super, super popular in the summertime. Everybody wants to go hang out at the lake house. But man, from October to April, May, nobody wants to be in northern Minnesota probably on vacation.
No.
Unless you're a big ice fisher, I guess, fisherman. But anyway, So we don't have that type of seasonality here
Right.
compared to what some other places have for sure. There's stuff that people are coming to Colorado Springs for throughout the year. I would say wintertime probably is the lowest season, but
Yeah.
still there's people that are coming here in the winter for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a great market from that standpoint to be investing in that. And there's some really great properties that cash flow really, really well in this area because when people come here, they kind of want to stay in the heart of downtown Springs or
Right,
in the
yeah.
heart of Manitou, somewhere where they can get to those places that they came here to visit to
Yeah.
get, to go see. So there's definitely that. But there are restrictive ordinances, especially within the city, that make it a little bit difficult to find those properties sometimes. So
Yeah, I think this is where like your due diligence, you have to do a lot of due diligence ahead of time. And like Sam said, it's right now it's kind of Colorado Springs City proper that has a lot of restrictions put in place. And as you can imagine, it was done for good reason. I mean, if an investor wanted to go in and have whatever 100 short-term rentals across town, they kind of bought up a neighborhood. It kind of gets rid of the neighborhood feel that a lot of people are looking for.
Yeah.
So the restrictions, and let me caveat all of this by definitely saying, please check out. We're going to put some links down below, but jump online. There'll be links. You can do your own research, check it out because stuff kind of changes pretty often. But across town, there are restrictions on how many short-term rentals, if they're not owner-occupied, can be in a certain area, like a certain radius.
Yeah.
So it kind of limits the number of them that you can have, at least in the city limits.
Yeah, absolutely. Another point to go along with that is zoning is key. Again, this is where due diligence is massively important when you're looking for these types of properties. But here in the city of Colorado Springs, there's a whole set of zoning types for that individual property that it is that you're looking for, where you can have a non-owner occupied Airbnb. Then there's a whole set of different zoning types where you can have only an owner occupied Airbnb. And then you start getting into laws where things are grandfathered or not grandfathered, all sorts of stuff. So zoning is key. And then knowing, so that radius that Chris talked about, we've ran into this a couple of different times. Typically, the city is not going to let you set up any sort of Airbnb that's within 500, I think it's 500 feet in a radius of any other Airbnb in the area. And that might be applied to only non-owner occupied Airbnbs, but it might not be. Can't quite remember what it says on the city's website. And frankly, the city's website can be really frustrating to deal with because they have the zoning map and then they have the heat map for like density of Airbnbs, and it can just be a real pain in the butt to deal with. So sometimes just calling the city up directly, going to get the information from the horse's mouth, if you will, is going to be the best route a lot of the times.
Yeah, and we really can't overemphasize that enough because the last thing you want to do is buy a property that you plan to Airbnb. That's your whole purpose of buying it, and then you find out that you can't. I should say, use as a short-term rental.
Yeah.
We've had clients that have bought properties in town to use as a short-term rental. So you just have to do your due diligence ahead of time. So I think that the tourism base and the visitors in Colorado Springs, that's going to continue.
Yep.
I think that while there are ordinances and zoning restrictions you have to work around, you can certainly find some properties. And then there's the whole outside of the Colorado Springs city limits. Then I don't want to say it's a wild, wild west, but it's a whole lot easier to have a non-owner occupied short-term rental if you're outside of the city limits, if you're just in like the unincorporated area of El Paso County.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a lot of options, but there's just some things you just really, really need to be cognizant of ahead of time.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of predictions for the upcoming year in the short-term rental market specifically. You think it's going to be good? Not so good? What are your thoughts? You think there's more restrictions coming down the pipeline? And actually, before you answer that, there's another point that I just remembered.
Yeah.
Permitting is required within the city for your Airbnbs. Right now, the city says there are no limits on permits. But what I'm hearing from people is it's a pain in the butt and it takes forever to get a permit. So the city can say whatever it wants and then kind of do another thing. That's just, kind of how municipal governments work sometimes. And of course, they're inundated with requests all the time and complaints and, all sorts of stuff. So that's another area to just kind of be cognizant of and kind of do your due diligence in. But like I said, predictions for the upcoming year.
My predictions, there's going to be some personal opinion put in here as well. So we talked about housing prices. Houses have gotten a lot more expensive over the last couple of years, so it's just harder for the numbers to make sense. Interest rates have went up. They're probably going to stay kind of higher for the 2023 timeframe. So I don't know. For me personally, I think there are probably better areas to look at for a short-term rental than the Colorado Springs market. Now, that's my opinion. Like I said, what do I think it actually pans out with in 2023? I think that there will be people that will increase the number of short-term rentals in Colorado Springs, but it's not going to be this huge influx of investors like what we saw probably, I would say, 3 to 4 years ago. I think there's going to be onesies and twosies. People are going to continue to grow their portfolios that have the short-term process down. They kind of have their business model built, and they have the funding to buy properties where they're not buying them, maybe buying them all cash or just large cash and maybe a small amount of loans. So I think we'll see it grow a little bit, but I do believe while we haven't reached a saturation point, I do think we've got to the point where there are a lot of short-term rentals in Colorado Springs. And I think if you kind of balance that out for what the vacancy rate is, if you take a look at that, like there's other markets that I know that have like an 80% occupancy rate or a 20% vacancy rate. You look at Colorado Springs, if you look at the numbers, I believe the best parts of Colorado Springs, like probably downtown-ish, maybe west side, they've got about a 50% vacancy rate. Wow. So I think that if you look at the data, there's probably a lot better other areas to consider, but you can still certainly make money in short-term rentals in Colorado Springs, but I don't think we're going to see this huge bump up like we did over the last couple of years.
No, let's sprinkle some more of that personal opinion in there.
Oh, I got opinions.
Do you like short-term rentals?
I don't mind them.
You don't mind them?
I don't mind short-term rentals. I have a little secret niche that I can't disclose to anybody right
fair.
now, but so for short-term rentals, I think if you're thinking about getting, let's talk about this real quick. If you're thinking about getting into short-term rentals, just realize it's not like you see on TV.
No.
You're going to have people that are going to get there. They can't figure out how to work an electronic lockbox for some reason at, whatever, at 4 a.m, whenever they decide to show up. There's frustrations that go into it. You're probably going to want to pay a management company, especially if you're geographically separated from the property. If you're in another city, not Colorado Springs, now you're talking a 20% management fee. If you really do the business planning, they sound great, and you read a lot of good things online about them. But in my opinion, unless you're going to manage it yourself, or if you just have a business model that has a lot of short-term rentals in it, it can be difficult to make good money off of them, and you just have a lot of hassles potentially with the tenants coming and going every single week.
Yeah.
So for me personally, not a huge fan of them. There's something called medium-term rental that I'm a huge fan of. I'll leave it at that.
So you wouldn't say necessarily that you like them.
Yeah, that's probably fair.
You know what I like?
What do you like?
I like when you guys leave a like. Okay?
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That was good.
That was good, right? That was good. If you like this kind of content, make sure to hit the thumbs up button. If you absolutely hate short-term rentals, make sure to hit the like button, okay? And like I said, if you like this kind of content, we're pumping this out twice a week for you guys. We love making these videos, so make sure to hit the subscribe button, click the notification bell so you don't miss any of it. And most importantly, as much as we love making these videos, we're licensed realtors here in the state of Colorado. We'd love to help you find that short-term rental property or any other property that you're thinking of, that second home, that vacation home, whatever the case may be. And we're the guys who actually answer the phone.
Yeah.
Our info's down in the description box. Don't hesitate to reach out to us. Again, we'd love to help you. So
call, text, email, hit us up in the comments. We're here anytime.
That's right. You want to go check out that rental property up in Aspen?
Let's get that really good deal that I found up there, yeah.
Okay, sweet.
All right, see you guys.